Prime Minister Narendra Modi has appreciated US President Donald Trump's comments on relations with India. Taking to social media X, Prime Minister Modi said, and I quote him, "Deeply appreciate and fully reciprocate President Trump's sentiments and positive assessment of our ties. India and the US have a very positive and forward-looking, comprehensive and global strategic partnership." This is the breaking news we're receiving. We are getting at this hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has appreciated US President Donald Trump's comments on relations with India. Remember, this comes after Donald Trump made a scathing remark at the growing friendship between China, Russia and India. And today we see Trump saying that the relationship between India and the US is a special one, and that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a close friend. So here we have the breaking news. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has appreciated and reciprocated the comments put forth by President Donald Trump. Up on your screens, we have the breaking news coming in. Prime Minister Modi appreciates Trump's comments on relations with India. Deeply appreciate and fully reciprocate President Trump's sentiments and positive assessment of our ties. Donald Trump had earlier described India-US ties as a very special relationship, and he also said that he would always be friends with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So this is the breaking news we are getting this hour. Remember, this development comes after President Trump's "Lost India" comment a few days back. Prime Minister Modi has appreciated Trump's comments on relations with India. He says, "Deeply appreciate and fully reciprocate President Trump's sentiment and positive assessment of our ties." Earlier, Trump had described India-US ties as a very special relationship, saying he would always be friends with Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
He's great. Prime Minister, he's great. I'll always be friends, but I just don't like what he's doing at this particular moment. But India and the United States have a special relationship. There's nothing to worry about.
All right, so up on our screens, we saw the soundbite of President Trump, where he talked of appreciating the relationship between India and US, and also Prime Minister Narendra Modi appreciating this thought and sentiment by President Trump. And he also did say that India also reciprocates the same. Our correspondent Akshay Dongre joins us with more on phone line. Akshay, what do you make of this U-turn that has been seen on part of President Donald Trump? At the same time, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also saying that India reciprocates this sentiment put forth by President Donald Trump.
Well, Preeti, seems like there is an off-ramp now, finally, for the U.S. government and the President of the U.S., especially, given the fact that the kind of hostile statements that have been coming in, there were always experts thinking that there will be an off-ramp, there will be a rethink, and the relation between the two countries are quite important, in fact, in the last decade and this decade as well. The ties between India and the U.S. have been considered as, defining ties of the century as far as the region is concerned. Both the countries have had immense progress in bilateral ties as well as trade and security ties as well. But the kind of hostilities that we have seen were unprecedented. India held on its ground. Prime Minister's leadership was quite detrimental as far as, deciding or rather sailing through these troubled waters are concerned. Prime Minister's leadership was quite important and crucial in that hour of need, and the government held on to the sort of stand that the government took, and it now seems that the US also has realized that you cannot push around major economies with the world's largest democracy, the world's largest country in terms of people, just like that. The kind of statements that were coming from Peter Navarro or even the Commerce Secretary that has just come, it seems that at the top level there was a rethink, and the US President Donald Trump had realized that You just cannot use anything that comes to your mind, make any kind of statement,
Right.
and push the world's largest democracy in absolutely opposite part of the world, just like that. That has been one of your most crucial allies. Back to you, Preeti.
All right, Akshay, now President Donald Trump is not new at throwing surprises, but then his comments right after the photographs of the SCO summit surfaced did raise eyebrows. And now that when he is trying this, he has come up with this damage control appreciation of India-US ties, how far will it hold ground in the times ahead, given the way you are also putting for us how India has remained steadfast with its own stand? But at the same time, how do you read President Donald Trump's mind here? To what extent will it hold ground in the future when we talk of the relationship between the two countries?
Well, as far as the statement that has come from Donald Trump is concerned, or the kind of stand that India maintained, see, we have to understand that India's stand when it comes to the oil from Russia, or when it comes to its foreign policy, it has nothing to do with, countering other countries, or joining a bloc. India is a major economy and a major democracy that has always been non-aligned, even during the Cold War. When you look at the times right now, India has always held on to its own interest and the interest of its people, especially the marginalized people, especially the lower middle class and the lower class people who are who will be devastated by buying costlier oil, who will be devastated by if there are certain trade tariffs that are lifted, because the economy is still developing. You cannot actually compete with an economy, 5 or 7 times your size without tariffs and without certain protections that you have to provide your market. So that's what the Prime Minister also says. The Prime Minister is saying that he's deeply appreciative of the stand that Donald Trump has, or the statements of Donald Trump, and the relation between the two countries are quite comprehensive. And he deeply appreciates and reciprocates the sentiments of the positive assessment that Donald Trump has made. Now, irrespective of all of the statements and all of the hostilities that were there, you have to realize that in foreign relations there are no permanent enemies or friends. There are only permanent interests, and that applies to all the countries. US values India because India is the world's largest democracy. It is a democracy with shared values in another part of the world where the waters are troubled for even the US. In fact, we saw the kind of statements coming in one after another. And now, Donald Trump has said that he will always be friends with Prime Minister Modi. There is nothing to worry about, in fact, between India and US. Now, nothing to worry about. So we have to break down the statements one by one, because, these are statements of the world's most powerful man, but the leader of the world's most powerful country and economy. So when he says that nothing to worry about, it seems that there has been a rethink, and a quite serious rethink, and now finally an off-ramp. So it seems that there will be now attempts made to bring closer ties to India. But the kind of, we also have to keep in mind that the kind of situation that has been there. So India will obviously take care of its own interest and make policies keeping in mind its own security, as well as both in terms of national security and trade security. Because the kind of meetings between Trump and Asim Munir that took place a couple of, a month back, barely, also has hurt the Indian psyche to a great extent. Corrections have to be made in that manner as well. The kind of fight India is fighting against terrorism in Pakistan, that has to be supported by US as well, not only in words but in action. When he says that, just a few hours back, that he has lost India, perhaps this was the moment of realization that you cannot actually treat a sovereign country like India the same way that US perhaps would have treated the smaller, smaller countries.
All right, Akshay, I'll ask you to take that a little forward for us.
Right.
With Donald Trump, President Donald Trump retracting on his statements, at the same time appreciating India-US ties and calling Prime Minister Narendra Modi a close friend, also throws light on India's growing stature on the global page, given the geopolitical equations, the way they are changing, given the present geopolitical challenges which the world is facing. It does throw light. What kind of light does it throw, in fact, on India on the global page under the leadership of Prime Minister
Well,
Narendra Modi?
Donald Trump has realized that India is a sleeping giant.
Yeah.
India is not an aggressive country. India is not a country that sends its troops to other countries or tries to claim the territories of other countries. It silently is working towards the benefit of its people. It silently is working towards the benefit of the humanity as a whole, to world peace. So India has always been this sleeping giant that doesn't bother anybody, but it also doesn't take any kind of threats or any kind of statement that questions it's rather be it economy or be it sovereignty or be it self-respect of Indians. So that remains paramount. Prime Minister has made sure that the self-respect of each and every Indian remains intact. He took a stand when it was most required. He took a stand when Donald Trump was questioning the Indian economy. He was questioning the ties. He was pressurizing the traders. He was pressurizing the people and the industries. But we are not a country that is dependent. We are a country, a civilization rather that started thousands of years before US was even formed. We survived quite well. We will survive quite well even now. There is support from the US, there is good trade relations with the US or not. What we are looking at this point in time is a rethink and a moment of realization by the US that this is 21st century and not 20th century anymore, and it's not a unipolar world anymore, and India remains a very, very important country, and it remains a sovereign country that is not going to take any kind of threat towards its be it economy or be it people. Back to you, Preeti.
All right, Akshay, now India buying oil from Russia did irk President Donald Trump, and we've seen how US has put sanctions almost to the tune of 50% on India. Having said that, do we expect this statement of President Trump hailing India-US ties and calling Prime Minister Narendra Modi go further in the future, in the longer run? Though it is a little too early to estimate or speculate, but then do we expect some softening in the US stand over, the recent the sanctions or the tariffs that have been imposed?
Well, there should be, Preeti, and the reason why I'm saying that is, you cannot build trade ties, you cannot build ties with a country, and then suddenly you decide that those ties are not working, because in the beginning you shouldn't have given the sort of assurances that there will be ties, and people have invested in US-India relations, people have invested in US, the ties are going really well, and then suddenly the leadership changes and they decide that there are certain conditions if you want to continue, otherwise all of your investment is held hostage. So that is in fact quite quite a backstabbing, that would be quite a backstabbing behavior. So as far as the US government is concerned, certainly they should look back at the kind of mistakes that have happened in the recent times. But we are not dependent entirely on the US. We are a very, very major market economy, and we will thrive quite well without the support of any country in that case. We are looking at forming friends and allies at global scale, but not at cost of self-respect. Exactly.
All right, Akshay, for the benefit of our viewers, very quickly, get us a quick background, a quick, look back at the events that led to this, and also how has the relationship between the two countries, evolved over the years. Now, during President Trump's first tenure, and now as the president of the US for the second time, how have the ties evolved over the years?
Well, let's start from the last millennia. Let's start from 1999. Let's start from the Clinton administration, where after the nuclear test, there were sanctions, there were trade barriers, there were a lot of hostilities between the two countries. US did not appreciate the fact that India tested nuclear weapons. It questioned the entire non-proliferation moves that were being taken by the U.S. And then times changed. After 9/11, there was a war on terror. There was war in Iraq, and India was seen as a very important partner here. Then under the George Bush administration, there were nuclear treaties between the then government, and then the relations kept on evolving. But the really thaw-breaking and really major things have happened in the last 10 years between President Obama and Prime Minister Modi. Then there was Donald Trump, where the relationship escalated to a whole new level. Then the government changed, and when it comes to the last tenure of Donald Trump, we saw the kind of shared vision between the leaderships of the two countries. There were trade was increasing, investment was coming in, and then suddenly there was these, after the second term of Donald Trump, we saw sort of protectionism in the market, and that perhaps can be because the U.S. economy is slowly starting to stagnate, other economies are emerging. So there perhaps was a rethink that there should be certain protections. But at the cost of the allies, that was the biggest question, because you are not putting trade tariffs on your biggest adversary that you claim is China, but you are putting higher tariffs on an ally that you were thinking of having as a counterbalance to that growing might of China. So all in all, India has stuck to a non-aligned policy. India has been friends with the U.S. as well as the Soviet Union back in the Cold War, and India doesn't want to join blocs. It doesn't want to join any kind of international sort of grouping that is against another grouping. We are a grouping already. We are part of the Global South, and we talk about Global South. We talk about the welfare of the people of Global South and development of the region that has been either negated development or has not been able to achieve it. So as far as the ties are concerned, they have been evolving. They have they have grown quite significantly. But the situation at this point in time, and the things that we saw in the last 2 months was quite a shocker to the Indian psyche when it comes to the ties with the U.S. But now it seems that there is a realization, especially after the SCO summit, that it's self-respecting democracies do not take threats nicely, and you will further push them away. So that perhaps seems to be the reason that there is an absolute U-turn by the U.S. leadership on ties with the U.S.
All right. Akshay, I would also want you to, evaluate for us the second tenure of President Trump, where he appears to be coarse, where he appears to be unfazed, following a, by hook or by crook or like my way or no way kind of, politics. Help us understand, what makes him follow this, in the sense that, I would want you to explain to us, given the present geopolitical situation faced by the world, where is US standing at present, given the way he has vowed to make America great again. At the same time, he is leaving no stone unturned to show the supremacy of America over other countries. Put all this together, what do you make of this unfazed President Donald Trump during his second tenure?
Well, partly there is a lot of challenge to the U.S. Clearly, we have to understand that U.S. has maintained that hegemony for a very long time. It has been a hegemon. It has been the sole superpower for about 20-25 years before the resurgence of China was starting to be quite visible. So there was clearly a sort of question within the circles of the U.S. government that whatever is happening is the kind of growth that is happening in other parts of the world, the kind of tariffs that economies like China and others are putting on the U.S., especially despite growing to such a large extent, is a sort of a threat to the U.S. hegemony. But US did forget that, with moving times, it's not always going to be only the US that is going to be on top. There are changes in the world global order, be it economy or be it global power. So there were questions, and the sort of moves that have been made by the Trump administration were protectionist. However, you have to be protectionist with adversaries, not your allies. The kind of statements that have been issued at times against the European Union leaders, or against countries like India, those have been big question marks on the understanding of foreign policy by the U.S. government. It seems that there are two options. There is carrot and stick. It is always used by even the officials in the police and law enforcement to get things done. So it's carrot is you try to be nice to somebody, and stick is you try to threaten someone. So apparently Donald Trump used the stick first. He used tariffs, used trade barriers, used other kind of economic restrictions, but it hasn't worked and it has failed very clearly. In fact, there were, not just the people inside the U.S. government, but other allies, European allies of U.S. Have been saying that, or rather have been urging the U.S. government to not move on the same path of alienating India. Otherwise, the statements that were coming both from inside the U.S. and from the European countries was that they have lost the century. And they have lost, and they have lost not only the century, but they will never become the global superpower if the entire region is isolated. So you have to understand, the Indo-Pacific gone, the Indian Ocean region gone. So if you do not have half of the world, that is, or rather the half of the world is inaccessible to you, especially the region that is the biggest oil producing region, that is quite crucial for navigation, that is quite crucial for trade, then you have lost your half of the power. So that has been the realization. India still will not continue, or India, just because these kind of statements are made, it doesn't shift to any kind of major policy changes, because policies are not changed in any democracy just like that on statements. However, there will be an off-ramp, and it seems that India will find now some sort of negotiation at least possible with the U.S. leadership. Back to you, Preeti.
All right, Akshay, from here we are joined in by our correspondent Amritpal Singh. We will talk to him also about this breaking news. Amrit, how do you evaluate this change of stance, or if I may call it cautious maneuvering by President Donald Trump, from calling India lost to China to this day when he hails India-US partnership, relationship, and he calls Prime Minister Narendra Modi a close friend?
Look, it can be, Donald Trump's statement can be looked at from two aspects. One aspect is that Donald Trump is aware very much of the importance and significance of this relationship. Just that he's a tough negotiator. He's using the tariff stick to rein in whoever he can and how much soever he can. Once India stood up and showed resilience while respecting the foundations of the relationship, but also its limitations, Donald Trump realized that he can go so far and thus far and no further. And therefore, this change of a tactic to appease India, to praise the India-US relationship, to praise Prime Minister Modi. So India's reaction has been that Prime Minister Modi, he said that I appreciate and reciprocate the sentiments of President Trump and the positive assessment of the India-US ties. So clearly, I think Donald Trump is trying to play, typically using the carrot approach towards the relationship, which a very seasoned statesman wouldn't do, but that's Donald Trump for you. But India has been consistent that it values the relationship. The relationship is built on shared values, shared aspirations, shared needs, the commonalities, and it is a significant relationship, and India attaches importance to it. I hope if Donald Trump has, I hope it's just not a tactic, and he realizes the foundations, the strong foundations of the relationship, then it would augur well for Indo-US ties, Priti.
All right, Amrit, having said this, do we expect this damage control diplomacy by President Trump to finally show in the way, US has imposed tariffs on India, or for that matter, US's criticism of India buying oil from Russia in the near future? Any kind of
I think
softening that can be expected?
I think if Donald Trump really means what he says, I think there is some kind of softening, and his advisors would have spoken sense to him, saying that look, this approach is not going to yield much. India's made it clear that it will do trade with whatever countries it does, irrespective of the trade with the United States. It would not want to say buying on the issue of buying Russian oil. India has made it stand very, very clear to the Americans that why India is buying this oil, how the Americans and the West encouraged India to increase its oil buying from Russia, and how it brought stability in times when global supply chains were disrupted due to the war. So all that. So India's made its stand very, very clear to the Americans. Now, I think Donald Trump earlier thought that he could, browbeat India or use a bulldoze approach, which his advisors would have advised him that this doesn't seem to be getting the United States much far as India is concerned. So I think this change of stand is clearly reflective of the changes that he realizes are happening, and it would, as I said, augur well for the relationship if he goes ahead in a sensible and in a manner that's more sustainable and works out whatever issues that the two countries may have.
All right, Amrit, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for joining in with those details. That was our correspondent Amritpal Singh breaking down for us the latest that we're getting for you from US. President Donald Trump has praised India and US ties and has called Prime Minister Narendra Modi his close friend. Remember, this comes after just a few days back, President Donald Trump had put forth a scathing remark against India, calling India being lost to China. So here we have President Donald Trump retracting from his earlier statement. Up next, we're heading for a short break. We'll continue with this.